All right. Review board, old business. Review board action item list.
The new agenda that I sent out with everyone was the Cape Horn meter replacement after we finally heard back from our attorneys. You guys had asked me to send out the Cape Horn water meter user agreements to our district attorney. And so I emailed them that. I should probably bring that up to reference since I know Jeff wasn't a part of that original email. Oh. I got this. So one of the questions was, do the agreements follow the property or the previous homeowner? Little background on this is when the Bayview system ran up to serve the Cape Horn area, we had 8 customers who said, we just put our meters in, I don't want to pay for a new meter, I want to use the meter that I have now.
They explained to them that we got it from the Pondray Pines system in Cape Horn, we took it over from them back
Yeah.
in 2002, that's when we supplied water to them. So this is what she's talking about, go ahead.
Yeah,
Okay.
and they said, no, we like our meters, they're new, we want to keep them.
They're
So
in the
they,
basements.
yep, some are in
Easy to
basement,
read,
yeah.
Mhm.
So, an agreement was entered between the district and the homeowners that, okay, you can keep your meter, but you're responsible for replacing the meter, you're responsible for the cost of it, things like that. So we knew that the agreement was in place, but it took us a really long time. One day we'll have to show you our back office filing room that I inherited.
And the wall that you inherited in 2016.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Sticky notes.
Yeah, the walls were riddled with post-it
Sticky
notes
notes.
everywhere.
Crime investigation.
Yeah. So anyway, Clint finally found them. I shoved him in there and locked the door, and he found them. Well, he found 6 out of 8. So anyway,
That's great, you found 6.
I know. Well, at first he found all 8, and he said, but none of them are signed. I was like, I hope this does not mean what I think it means. And he's like, I found 6 that are signed. And I was like, I'll take it.
That was a couple hours later.
Yeah. So anyway, when I finally told them that I found those agreements, they asked that I send them on to the attorney, and I'll make sure to send you the agreements. Send Jeff.
It's great we actually found them, we thought we'd never find anything.
Yeah. It was just an old legend that we had heard that
Yeah.
an agreement out there somewhere existed. So anyway. This was his response. Do the agreements follow the property or the previous homeowner? Zach said, it seems to me that the agreements are attached to the land and therefore they travel with the land. Subsection 7 of the agreements indicate that the agreements are binding on the owner and their respective successors in interest. And that was quoted. And further in the same subsection it indicates that it is the intent of the parties that the agreements shall run with the land. Finally, it looks like these agreements were recorded with Kootenai County on or around April 23rd of 2003, which only further evidences the intent of the parties that the agreements are attached to the land. Next question was, do the agreements give the district any ability to recoup the cost for new meters? In my opinion, the agreements sufficiently require that the homeowners are responsible for the cost of the new meters. Subsection 4 of the agreements indicate that the owner will be responsible for maintenance and repair of the water system, included but not limited to the water meter. So long as the district can reasonably demonstrate the necessity for replacing the water meter in order to maintain it in a working condition. It might be in the district's best interest to reach out to the homeowners and see if they can front the cost of any new water meters based on this agreement, rather than attempt to recoup the cost, since that is what is specifically contemplated in the agreement. However, I believe the agreement is sufficient to compel the owners to repay the district for the cost of the new meters if they have already been purchased. The last thing I asked was, are they sufficient for outlining who is responsible for the cost to move them out of their house into the street? Unfortunately, that was a lie, no. In my opinion, the agreements do not outline who is responsible for the cost of moving the meters from the home to the street. The purpose of the agreement was to effectuate the opposite and to allow the homeowners to not have to move the meters to the street. The district would likely have to enter into a new agreement and the homeowners in order to move the meters to the street.
Now, there's one other piece that Jeff needs to know and Paul needs to know on this, and that is in that area, there's 110 PSI of pressure there. District is responsible up to and including the meter. If a line breaks in their basement, guess who's on the hook? We are. Now, one of them we replaced did not have a PRV in it, Bob. It did not have any pressure reducer. They're just operating 110 pounds of
So
pressure.
that's the line feeding the meter.
Feeding the meter. The meter's in their
Beyond that,
basement.
yeah, beyond
Right.
that.
And it's always up to, the districts are always responsible up to and including the meter. Because they put it in the basement, that is our responsibility if that breaks in there. The second meter we replaced, actually we went to replace it and they discovered that it was leaking in the wall, putting it on us, and essentially, to do that. We've got two of them that weren't working, so we moved them out to the street. There are another, I don't know, 8 or so of them out there that are working. But again, we're on the hook with these things. We just replaced the 2 that weren't working because they're getting free water, well, being billed $45 a month for, we couldn't read the meter anymore, it was broken.
Well, I think we can agree it's an error to have them in the house.
Yes. And
It's
it's
probably an error to allow that.
it's because they didn't have the pressure issue, also, that's a huge, we've taken on that liability with
Terrible
110 pounds of
liability.
pressure in there, yeah.
Are the meters any good? Or are they old and have to be
They're
replaced?
very, I mean, you obviously 2003, the meters are probably older than that. It was a part of the original, Ponderay Pines system. And so there's really no point in keeping those meters, and especially as we've already had 2 of them fail to operate. But my concern is, again, the district's liability for having something in somebody's basement because we're responsible up to and including the meter.
And what's the cost to move them?
All in. Did you see the bills from that?
I have not seen the bill for that. Is
We're
that
on the
Jane?
hook anyway, because DEQ only allows a maximum of 100 PSI on the distribution line, and feed to a customer, the max is 80 PSI. So, we're just become shows.
Yeah.
Is this,
Yeah.
Well, typically what happens is we would move the meter to the street and it's their responsibility to put their own pressure reducing valve in if they want it, kind of a thing. Some of them, if it's up to 100, are saying, oh, I like it for my sprinklers. That's just what they do. I don't think we haven't got any invoices from them for that yet?
Nope. I know he's behind on.
Because he's getting emergency
invoicing.
work done for us and not billing us.
Yeah.
Well, we catch up.
We shouldn't allow that option if they want over 80 PSI. We just flat shouldn't allow it.
Now, I know, depending on some of them, they would whine and complain. I've had customers not here, but another district. I need my 85 PSI. I'm gonna come after you if you don't provide it.
Better if they come after you for not
we
providing
need
it.
to
than-
slap the
yes.
regulation in place, yeah.
Right, yeah.
Well, I would think long-term, we want to come up with a program to get them out.
Yes.
Basically.
Mm-hmm, that's correct.
And
How much is it?
if the money is reasonable, maybe making a reasonable offer of splitting it with them, some way to make it happen over time.
Well, with respect to possibility of ruptured lines and so forth with a higher pressure, what will it take to reduce the pressure to the required level?
Just a PRV,
Yeah,
it's real simple.
right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
some of them may have it already in there. I'm just letting you know what happened with the 2 that we had found that were, they
Meter
did not.
failed,
Yeah,
so
they
that
did not, the meters failed and they did not have a PRV in there.
And that's a PRV ahead of the meter.
Well, yeah, but
Sure.
that, well,
That's the only
but
way.
right now, it needs to be on the back,
Inlet meter.
it needs to be on the back side of the meter, so it's their responsibility.
Okay.
Is
Yeah,
that-
because you can't make the PRV their responsibility.
No, but an individual one, we can make it the responsibility of putting it on the backside.
once it's downstream from the meter.
Because it's downstream from the meter, anything on the backside of the meter is the
Right.
homeowner's responsibility.
Okay.
So I
Why
guess
is there
it's,
a PRV on the main line coming up out of the lake?
what do you mean it's going down the hill? I don't know why it was at the time, I'm gonna be guessing maybe, it is pretty high down there. I don't know why it was not. That's probably an engineering question, because actually for all those homes, it's possible because it's such a steep drop off that if they had one PRV, they may have either had to have another, or, because it was such a quick
I'm
drop,
not
they
sure if
couldn't
they're,
handle
how
all the
high,
pressure.
how high up the mountain.
They could have had it, like, let's say Cape Horn Road and Ponderay Pines Drive maybe had one, but they may have only could adjust it for the upper homes, and they would have to have individual PRVs, the lower ones are much higher pressure, because I know down by the fire hydrant on Ponderay Pines at the bottom, it's 150 PSI. Yeah,
Yeah, that- otherwise
You're getting
put a
up to the
booster
max of the
station.
well, that was the
PVC
first
pipes.
one the fire department